Hello everyone, this is Bill Acevedo and team from Dorado Software. I'd like to welcome everyone to this session of Tech Talk. Today we will be focusing on user-defined attributes in actions. There's also been a lot of questions about SonicWall supported features. So we're going to merge this ACLI actions along with some information on SonicWall supported features as well. We'll start with a short demo on how to create actions or ACLIs using custom attributes, and I will be using a SonicWall device configuration to demonstrate. And after the demo, we'll review the other SonicWall supported features in a little bit more detail. Overall, this video should be about 10 to 20 minutes, and then we'll follow up with a Q&A session. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to enter them in the GoToMeeting chat window, and we'll try to address as many of those as we can. Okay, so let's get started. For anyone familiar, actions are simply predefined scripts. The most common type are embedded CLI or Perl scripts that push commands to a device. Actions are also referred to as ACLI or adaptive CLI, which stands for, it's called ACLI and it stands for Adaptive Command Line Interface. And so to get started here, I'm going to bring up OpenManage. To create a new action, you simply go to Resources and Actions, and you'll see the screen here. I have the Actions portlet already up. You'll see there's a variety of actions that are already preceded. To create a new one, you simply just right-click and select New Adaptive CLI. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to show you one that's already been created, and we'll walk through it. Before you even start creating an ACLI, what you really need to do is go and find out what you're trying to automate to a particular device or the commands you want to send. In this case, I did this with the SonicWall device, and these are the exact commands that would be sent to a box if you were to sit down in a PuTTY or a Telnet session and just do these on the command line. So you want to have these ready before you start your ACLI. In today's demo, we're going to show this interface configuration, and these are the commands that I've already set up for attributes that I'm going to need. So it's going to be you're going to send the config command interface. There's an attribute there, an IP assignment, some string attributes, and some optional attributes. There's IP with an IP type attribute. There's going to be a mask attribute, and then a couple more IPs for DNS1 and DNS2, a gateway IP, and then finally a string value for a default for a user-defined string for a comment on this particular interface. And then the last part here is just some hard-coded commands that I want sent on every device that gets configured to this ACLI. And then finally we do a commit statement. So let's look at what this would look like if you needed to create this. So assuming we're creating a new one here, we would put in an ACLI name. Typically we want to use this option as CLI configure command, and our target is going to be a managed device. Down below here you have the ability to associate this particular ACLI to a particular device or set of devices, so that when you go to Resource Manager and right click, it will display this particular action. But what we're focusing on today is the attributes. And so the first thing you do is create your attribute set. Give it a name. And here's an example of the attributes that I've already set. If you wanted to create new attributes, you simply click New, and your options are a Boolean type, coded value, which is more of an advanced feature where you can extract values from the output of an ACLI. You can have a date, parameter, decimal, IP address, integer, long value. Inventory reference is the ability to select a parameter for devices that are already in inventory, and there's many attributes available in that area. And finally, there's a string attribute. So let's look at what I've set up here. Again, just referencing this, we're going to go, the first attribute is interface name. That's my attribute here. IP assignment aligns with the IP assignment options, and so forth with the rest of them. And we'll refer back to this particular one. So for example, an interface attribute name, this is simply a string value, and I've already set in here the string values that I want applicable to this particular command. You could leave this blank and the user could freehand enter whatever string they wanted to, but I want to confine it to these particular values. And I've also set a default string of x2 just so they have something that's set up here. And so that's an example of a string attribute. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these other properties and collection settings. We can go into that further when we talk about actions in general and maybe more advanced features. IP assignment. Again, this is just a string that's required on the box, and again, a set of values that I'm going to allow and a default value. IPs. An IP address is a particular type of attribute where it'll only let you put in an IP address. In this case, we will look at the properties. In some cases, you want to have an IP as a mask value or as a subnet or a 32-bit mask or allow any valid IP or V4 or V6, and you can require V6 if you want to. You would select these options for the mask attributes if you're using an IP address. For example, over here I have interface mask. I selected one of these values so that it will accept a mask value versus a regular IP. I'll give you an example of that. I don't believe I have it set here, but what I should have here is the IP mask checked. I could edit that, and it would allow me to put that as a mask, and I would just save that, and that would be our allowed value. So going through the list here, I got a couple of IP addresses I'm setting for DNS primary, DNS secondary, a gateway IP. There's a comment. Again, it's just a string that we're going to allow, and this last one here is not being used. One note here is attribute presentation is you're going to get a GUI when you go to execute this, and this will allow you to arrange the GUI in the order of the attributes you want to put in first. So let's look at the script and how these attributes are used in the script. To create a new one, you would just add a new script here and put in your commands. Again, we would just cut and paste these commands in here, and that's what I've done on this script. I simply pasted the commands in, and anywhere I want my attribute, I've actually gone over, I have an attribute list here of attributes that I've just created, and I can add these to the script anywhere I want. It's as simple as just putting your cursor where you want your attribute and double clicking it, and it will insert it. You do have an option for delimiters up here, which it doesn't really matter what you choose there, but in this case it's using the brackets, open and close brackets. But that's how simple it is to put in these attributes into your script. I pasted my script and just cut and pasted each attribute in here. One thing to note is that as you create new attributes, they will all come in with this red square box on the right here. And at the lower right hand side here, it's a little obscure, there's some various indicators of the state or the ability to use that attribute. The green circle means that it will be required when the user executes it. The yellow means that it will be an optional attribute. The user will not have to enter it. And this other one here is it will be marked as not used, and it won't even show up. And the last one here is more of an advanced option. I'm not going to discuss that one right now, but just note that you'll need to, if you have an attribute that's red, you'll need to highlight it, select the green dot to make it the state that you choose. So just select it. I want to go back to not used. It'll turn it to red. So don't forget to do that, or you'll go to execute your script and the attributes won't show up. So let's just look at what this might look like when the script gets executed. So I'm going to close this, and I'm just going to simply execute that. So it's going to ask us for the device, and I know this is on a SonicWall. I want to apply this configuration. So I'm going to select my SonicWall, and I'm going to add that selection. Done. So it knows what device it's going to now, and now here's our interface that gets created on the fly. And as you saw, we have an interface name, X2. I can set that to whatever I want. I can choose whatever option I want here. I'm going to put in some IP addresses. Just for example here, a net mask. Oops. And then I'm going to put in, I'm going to actually make this more unique because it might interfere. Okay. DNS primary. Can I ask everyone to mute if you're on? I'm getting a little bit of static. And then finally a gateway IP address. And then a comment would be my default WAN interface, something like that. And then finally you're ready to go here. You want to preview it. And so here you see again, compared to our predefined script that we've already created, we're going to send these exact commands with the attributes that we've just entered. X4, you'll see that it's set to WAN static. the IP address and mask I just set, the primary DNS, secondary DNS gateway, and then my comment. So really that's in a nutshell, that's how you use attributes in a script. It's just a matter of choosing what attributes you need and then formatting them in the script in the way you think you need them for your device. So the next step is you just execute that. For the sake of time, I'm not going to execute it, but again, these would be sent exactly as shown here. It would get in the config mode, send the commands, end up with the commit statement, and it would put that configuration on the box. One thing I wanted to show was an example of a Perl script that also can be used to insert attributes. I'm going to edit that and look at that one. Go to the attributes again. You'll see we have some predefined attributes here, IPs and strings of various things. This particular script will go out and it's going to tell Dell devices to send traps to OMNM. And so we're going to put in things like the recipient IP and the SNMP version, the type, the community name, and those sort of things. One thing to note about the scripts on a Perl script, and you can do this also with command line, but Perl gives you a lot more flexibility in how the commands get structured. And I'll show you an example of that, but here's an example of a Perl script. And in Perl, you're using print statements basically to customize what you're sending to the boxes. So in this case, it looks like we're getting into config mode again. We're going to send the command SNMP host, some recipient IP, some community name, and some SNMP version. And so there's some, you can see here there is some scripting logic that can be put in to determine exactly what the command is going to look like. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on Perl, but just know that Perl gives you a lot more flexibility to customize how you want those particular things added in terms of the commands being sent. What you'll notice up here is a target filter. In this case, you notice there were multiple scripts. And so we need specific commands, although they're all Dell Power Connect devices, specific commands are needed for specific classes of devices. And we want to capture that under one action. And so we build them this way and have multiple scripts to do that. And so this particular filter would look at the device that we're trying to configure, and it would say it is a layer 3 device. I'm going to apply this Perl script to that particular command. I'm not going to go into error conditions and continue patterns other than to say that's kind of an advanced features on handling feedback from the box, so you can deal with prompts and yes and no commands and those sort of things that come back from the device. So I'll just give you an example here. Multiple scripts here. We got for iSCSI L3, iSCSI CLI, or ISCLI, and then the other Power Connect versions here. So I can execute that again just to show you what it's going to do. Pick a device here. So here again you have the ability to just put in the recipient IP. If I want to say it's my box right here that I'm on, oops, that's going to be and here's where I'm going to have the user put in, what do we want? Traps, okay, and what version do we want? V2. And community, I want to set a community that's on the box, and some port on 62, and timeout of 4, and retries of 5. Notice here the user just puts in SNMP v2. I want to show you what the preview looks like because the Perl has made some decisions on what commands get sent. So this is the simple command that gets sent. SNMP host we had, but then we have trap version. The user didn't put in 2C, they just put in SNMP v2. So the Perl script takes care of that. And then the community, then UDP port timeout, retries, and so that's all here. So that's an example here of how the Perl script doesn't require the user to put in specific things. They can just say v2, and then we apply the correct command based on the Perl script. Okay, that is a very quick review of actions. Before taking questions, I'm going to jump over to the other requested feature, which was SonicWall supported features, and then we'll open up the questions right after that. So SonicWall was introduced in OpenManage 6.1. The features that it supports are as follows: V1, V2, and V3. The device itself does not support V3 writes. So just beware of that. It supports SSH v2. The device also does not support Telnet, and so that is not a valid command line interface to use. We support all the applications, and so that includes deep discovery of devices, file management, backup, compare, and deploy. The caveat there is the device itself does not support a config file restore operation. There's no way to do that from the command line, and so it's not supported. Change management is supported to change the termination. ProScan and the entire automation framework is all supported. Actions, as I've just shown you, are supported. We can do full SNMP and KPI monitoring. Event management is fully supported. Link discovery topology. Direct access via command line interface, even HTTP and SNMP are also supported. We do support TFA coming from a SonicWall device, as well as reports. And so again, it's generally the entire application set of features is supported with a few caveats. And then finally here, there's a listing of the devices that we supported as of OpenManage 6.1. These are also available on the show versions in OpenManage. In 6.2, we are adding some more versions to this as well. Okay, I'd like to open up to questions now. I don't think anybody needs to unmute everybody that I had muted. And are there any questions at all before we wrap this up? I hear some background talking. I can't tell what's being said. If you could type it in to the chat window, that would help. That would help. Okay, I do see a question here on does ACLI is this supported on devices running Cumulus OS? That's an interesting question. The answer is yes. And for people who don't know, Dell supports a variety of ON boxes. For example, the 6000 ON. These boxes will boot to an FTOS version as well as a Cumulus Linux operating system. And so we can get onto the Cumulus Linux operating system, and again, it's just like any other command line interface, and we can send commands, either switch commands that Cumulus supports, or even Linux commands if you want to do something to the Linux-based operating system. We fully support that. In fact, any device that we can get to through the command line, we can run an action on. Okay, did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions on actions or ACLIs or SonicWall? I do see one here on attributes. Someone's asking about using attributes in other type of ACLIs. And so when you go to create a new ACLI, we didn't see this. Sorry, I want to go to new, tap CLI. Oh, sorry. So when you're creating a new one, in the attributes section, it's going to ask you if you want to use a parameter schema or do not use a parameter schema. So the schema basically is attributes. It's going to create these new attributes. And so if you're using a ACLI that has no attributes, you don't need a schema. You can create a new parameter schema, and you'll need to do that whenever you create a new ACLI. It gives you access to the attribute settings tab. And then finally, if you want to use somebody else's schema that's already created that already has attributes, you can use this last one here, and you simply go select that set of attributes. It will give you an option here to do that. Another way to use attributes is the copy function. Any one of these ACLIs you can okay, so this is a feature that we were going to introduce in 6.2, the ability to copy these scripts. When you can copy these scripts, you basically are making a template, and you can create your own, modify the copy. But that won't be available until 6.2. So the answer is yes, you can use them, and just use pre-existing attributes. Okay, anybody else have questions before I wrap it up? Anything on actions at all? It was a very quick review. I'm just looking through here. There's some various chat things going on here. I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap up this session. Thank you, everyone.